Okay, so you ready to jump into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Today we're taking apart this article called What's Slowing Your Growth as a Developer? Common Coding Pitfalls. And I think a lot of these will probably sound familiar.
Yeah.
But one thing that stood out to me was, even seasoned developers sometimes trip up on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're going to be digging into today, like how to sidestep those traps, whether you're, just getting started or you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
You always hear about like, oh, you got to learn the new framework or
Right.
you got to
Yeah.
stay ahead of the game.
Right.
But then sometimes it's the stuff you think you already know
Yeah.
that can trip you up.
It's like you can't skip leg day and expect to, win a marathon.
Right.
And so that's kind of what this first pitfall is all about.
Yeah.
It's called neglecting the fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I think it's more than just like, having a theoretical understanding,
Yeah.
but like really understanding data structures, algorithms,
Yeah.
design patterns.
Mm-hmm.
This comes into play when you're trying to optimize code for
Right.
performance
Right.
or debug like a complex system.
Okay. So like what would be an example of that?
So let's say you're building a web application
Mm-hmm.
and there's a feature that involves searching through a large data set. If you don't understand how different search algorithms work
Right.
and the time complexity involved,
Yeah.
you might end up with a solution that's like super slow
Oh, yeah.
and inefficient. Your users are going to be frustrated.
Yeah, I can see how that would lead to some
Exactly.
late nights.
Yeah.
Trying to debug that. Like, why is this so slow?
And that's just one example. Like
Right.
neglecting the fundamentals can manifest in different ways.
Yeah.
Like you might write code that's difficult to maintain
Right.
or struggle with complex debugging
Yeah.
scenarios.
So it's kind of like no matter how exciting, the new tools are, you have to have that really solid foundation.
Exactly. It's about striking that balance between staying up to date
Yeah.
and ensuring that like, your foundational knowledge is solid.
No more skipping leg day for us.
Exactly.
What's the next one?
So this one might be a little controversial,
Okay.
but the article highlights avoiding algorithm practice as like
yeah.
a common mistake.
I thought that was just for those like crazy coding interviews or like,
Yeah. It's a common misconception.
people who work on really specialized problems.
Right. So while algorithms are definitely tested in interviews,
Right.
understanding them is about more than just getting a job.
Yeah.
It's about training your brain to think efficiently
Mm-hmm.
and how to solve problems like systematically.
So it's not even just about like memorizing algorithms.
Right.
It's about like
Exactly.
developing that problem-solving muscle.
Yes. Think of it like you wouldn't try to navigate a new city without a map, right?
Right.
Algorithms are like
Yeah.
having that mental map for solving those coding problems.
Yeah.
It gives you a structured approach.
Yeah.
Helps you break down these complex tasks
Right.
into like manageable steps.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So even if I'm not, building the next Google search algorithm, understanding those like basic principles can still help me.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about efficiency. It's also about like writing code that's elegant
Oh, yeah.
and well-structured.
Yeah.
Often involves applying that algorithmic thinking.
There's an art to writing beautiful code.
Exactly.
Like a well-designed building or
Exactly.
a piece of furniture or something.
Just like a skilled craftsperson,
Yeah.
a developer who understands algorithms
Yeah.
can create solutions that are both effective
Yeah.
and like pleasing
And beautiful, yeah.
to look at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sold on the algorithm practice.
All right.
But let's be honest, sometimes we all write code that's,
Yeah. Unreadable code.
a little messy.
Yeah. We've all been there, You
Yeah.
come back to your code like weeks later.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, what was I thinking?
Or worse, a colleague has to work on it.
Right.
And they just send you a message like, help.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's more than just a matter of convenience, though.
Right.
Like unreadable code can have some serious consequences,
Mhm.
especially in, environments where you're collaborating.
So let's say I'm guilty of that.
Okay.
What are some tips from the article
Yeah.
to make my code more readable?
So one of the simplest but most effective techniques
Yeah.
is using meaningful variable names
Oh, yeah. So
instead of X and temp and all that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like, instead of X,
Yeah.
choose a name that actually describes what that data is.
Yeah. It's like writing, what's exact.
You want to use clear,
Yes.
concise language.
It's like writing a story,
Right.
not just a list of instructions.
Yeah.
And then another crucial aspect is adding comments to your code.
Yeah.
Eh, And not just to explain what the code does, but to provide, like,
Yeah.
context
Yeah.
and rationale.
It's like leaving little breadcrumbs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that you can follow it later.
All right. I'm ready to start writing code that my future self will thank me for.
Awesome.
That's next.
So this next one is less about, like, the code itself
Okay.
and more about how we manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Failing to learn version control, or Git.
Oh, yeah. Git.
Have you used Git?
I have. I'll admit it seemed a little intimidating at first.
Yeah, it can.
But I've heard it's really essential.
Essential. It's like having a time machine
Oh, wow.
for your code.
Okay.
With Git, you can track changes,
Mm-hmm.
revert to previous versions, create branches for experimentation,
Yeah.
and collaborate, like, seamlessly
Okay.
with others.
So, like, can you give me, like, a real-world
Yeah.
example
So
of
let's say
how that might play out?
you're working on a new feature.
Yeah.
You're trying a different approach.
Mm.
With Git, you can create a separate branch for that,
Right.
make changes, test them out
Right.
without affecting, like, the main code base.
Huh.
And then if it's successful, you can merge those changes back in.
Right.
If not, you just discard that branch and there's no headaches.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah,
No more fear of breaking everything.
exactly. one little.
And it works seamlessly for both individual and team projects.
So even if I'm working solo,
Yes.
I should still
Absolutely.
learn Git.
It's a fundamental skill that'll benefit you,
Okay.
regardless of, like, what you're working on.
All right, Git it is. Adding that to my to-do list.
Awesome.
That's next.
Okay, so this next one,
Yeah.
it's kind of like baking a cake,
Okay.
but you don't check if you have all the ingredients first.
It's called ignoring test-driven development.
Yeah.
Or TDD.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of TDD.
Have you?
Yeah, isn't that where you write the tests
Yeah.
before you write the code?
Exactly.
Seems a little backwards.
It might seem counterintuitive at first,
Yeah.
but it can really save you a lot of time
Okay.
and headaches.
So why would I do that? Why would I write tests
Okay,
before I've even written the code?
imagine this.
Yeah.
You're working on this complex feature,
Okay.
writing tons and tons of code,
Mm-hmm.
and then finally you run it,
Yeah.
and it's just riddled with bugs.
Yeah.
And now you have to go back through all that code,
Right.
trying to find
And find each little thing.
each one. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Exactly. So
Mhm.
with TDD,
Yeah.
you're essentially creating a safety net.
Okay.
You're defining that expected behavior
Right.
up front by writing those tests.
Right.
And those tests act as a guide as you write your code,
Mm.
ensuring that each piece is, like,
Okay.
functioning correctly.
So it's kind of like having a checklist as you're going,
Yeah, exactly.
making sure that you're on track.
And once you've written those tests, you can run them automatically.
Oh.
Every time you make changes,
Right.
you get that immediate feedback.
Oh, cool.
So you catch those bugs early on.
Right. Before they become big problems.
Exactly.
Okay. So I get that.
Okay.
But what about, like, the different types of tests? Like, I've heard things like unit tests,
Yeah.
integration tests. What's the difference?
So unit tests focus on testing individual components
Okay.
or functions in isolation.
Mhm.
So imagine testing, like, the wheels of a car
Okay.
before you assemble the entire vehicle.
Okay.
Right.
So you're making sure that each part works
Yeah.
before you put them all together.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then you have integration tests,
Yeah.
which focus on testing how those different parts work together.
Okay.
So it's like taking the car for a test strap to make sure everything's working smoothly
Okay.
together.
So unit tests are like checking the engine, the brakes, the transmission.
Yeah,
And integration tests are like taking it for a spin.
exactly.
That's all.
Perfect analogy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And there are other types of tests as well.
Mhm.
But the core idea with TDD
Mm-hmm.
is you start with the tests,
Okay.
you write the code to pass the tests,
Right.
and then you refactor and improve that code
Yeah.
while making sure those tests still pass.
It's almost like you're building in those checks at
Exactly.
every step of the way.
And that approach is beneficial for, like, preventing bugs,
Right.
but also making your code more
Yeah.
maintainable and adaptable
Okay.
for future changes.
All right. TDD's on my radar now.
What's next?
Okay. So this one,
Yeah.
I think we've all been guilty of this.
Okay.
Especially when we're trying to impress or we get carried away with our skills.
The article calls it over-engineering solutions.
I know exactly what you mean.
You do.
Yeah, it's that urge to build something super complex.
Yes.
And like a simple solution would work.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's the classic yo-ye-ji-aim principle.
Yoegi and I.
You ain't going to need it,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
Like, we sometimes fall into the trap of
Yeah.
anticipating these future needs
Yeah, that might
that
never
may never materialize.
happen. Yeah.
And we add all this unnecessary complexity to our code.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, so imagine you're building a simple contact form
Okay.
for a website.
Yeah.
You could create this really robust system
Yeah.
with database integration, email validation, CAPI-TCHA verification.
Right, right.
All this fancy stuff.
Yeah.
But if all you really need is a basic form
Right.
that collects a name and an email address,
Yeah.
all that extra complexity is just overhead
Just adding more problems.
and potential points of failure.
Right. So it's about choosing the right tool for the job. Exactly.
And not
Yeah, not going overboard.
to overcomplicate things.
Right. Yeah, I think I've definitely been guilty of that.
We all do it.
Overthinking things.
It's part of the learning process, right?
Yeah, yeah.
The key is to recognize the signs
Right.
and strive for simplicity
Uh-huh.
and elegance in our solutions.
Oh, so we've talked about
Yeah.
mastering the fundamentals, practicing algorithms,
Mm-hmm.
writing readable code,
Yes.
embracing version control, avoiding over-engineering.
Yeah.
What else should we be thinking about?
So this next one
Yeah.
is especially relevant in like
Okay.
the fast-paced world of software development.
Right.
It's not staying updated
Oh, yeah.
with industry
It
trends.
feels like every week
No,
there's a
it's-
new
Right.
framework or language.
It's hard to keep up,
Yeah.
but it's important to stay informed about those major trends.
So, like, what are some examples
That's
of
what-
recent trends?
One major shift has been the rise of cloud computing.
Yeah.
Services like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud
Right.
have revolutionized how we build and deploy applications.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's moving to the cloud now.
Exactly. And then you have the
Yeah.
ongoing evolution of mobile development.
Right, with all the smartphones and
Exactly.
tablets and everything.
Building those mobile-first experiences is essential now.
Right.
And then there's the growing field of AI and machine learning.
Yeah.
These technologies are changing everything.
Right.
And developers with these skills
Yeah.
are in super high demand.
So it's not just about,
Right.
keeping up with the new tools.
Yeah.
It's also about understanding how technology
Yes.
is evolving.
It's about anticipating the future of software development
Yeah.
and making sure you're ready.
Okay. Time to dust off the learning cap.
Yes.
See what's new.
Exactly. Okay, so this one might surprise you.
Okay.
It's less about technical skills and more about interpersonal abilities,
Okay.
neglecting soft skills.
Soft skills. I thought those were just for,
Yeah.
sales and marketing folk.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, as developers, we just got to code, right?
Mhm.
No. Well, not quite.
Okay.
While technical skills are essential,
Yeah.
soft skills are equally important.
Okay, I'm curious. What
Yeah.
kind of soft skills?
So we're talking about communication,
Okay.
teamwork,
Mm-hmm.
problem solving,
Yeah.
critical thinking,
Yeah.
and even empathy.
Mm.
These are crucial for
Yeah.
effective collaboration,
Right.
clear communication,
Yeah.
and building successful products.
So how would those
Play.
come into play in, a coding scenario?
Let's say you're working on a
Yeah.
project with a team.
Mm-hmm.
You need to articulate your ideas.
Right.
Listen to others' perspectives
Yeah.
and work together
Yeah.
to solve those problems.
If you can't communicate,
Exactly. If you can't,
then the project's just going to fall apart.
yeah, it can quickly derail.
Yeah, I've definitely been there where,
Mm.
miscommunication has caused
Right.
delays or frustration.
Exactly. And it's not just
Yeah.
about working with other developers.
Right.
You might have to interact with clients,
Right, right.
stakeholders, or even
Yeah.
non-technical team members.
Yeah.
You got to be able to explain
Yeah.
technical concepts in a way that they can understand.
So it's about more than
Right.
just writing good code.
Yes.
It's about all those.
These soft skills are what differentiate good developers
Okay.
from great developers.
I'm convinced time to work on those soft skills.
Exactly.
What's next?
Okay, so this one can be a little bit of a hurdle
Okay.
for some, especially those who are
Right.
used to working solo,
Mm-hmm.
not seeking code review or feedback.
Yeah. I can see how that would be a little
Yeah.
scary, putting your code out there.
Yeah, could feel a little vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I think, like anything,
Right.
the more you do it,
Yeah.
the easier it becomes.
The more comfortable you get.
And the benefits
Yeah.
far outweigh that initial discomfort.
So think of it as
Yeah,
a quality control check.
exactly. It's a fresh perspective on your work.
So a second pair of eyes to catch the things
Yes.
you miss.
And it's not just about bugs either.
Right.
Like, it can help improve your design,
Yeah.
learn new techniques, and make sure your code is consistent
Right.
with the project style.
So what if I'm working solo?
Even if you're working solo,
Yeah.
there are ways to get feedback.
Okay.
You could join like online communities,
Yeah.
participate in open source,
Right.
or reach out to other developers,
Right.
get their input.
Yeah, there's a whole community out there.
Exactly.
that
It's
you can
a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you think of a time
Yeah.
when you got feedback that really helped?
Yeah. I was working on this project and I was struggling with this algorithm. I
Yeah.
was convinced my solution was the best.
Okay.
But during the code review,
Yeah.
a colleague pointed out a much simpler approach
Wow.
that I had completely missed.
It's amazing how a fresh perspective can
Yeah.
open your eyes
Yeah.
to new possibilities.
And it's not always about getting feedback
Right.
from, senior developers.
Yeah.
Sometimes a junior developer
Sometimes they can spot things
Yeah.
you've missed.
because they're coming at it with a new perspective.
Totally.
So be open to feedback,
Yeah.
no matter where it comes from.
Embrace feedback. It's a sign of maturity.
Yeah.
And that brings us to
Yeah.
our final coding pitfall,
Oh, the final one.
which is a bit of a paradox.
Okay, I love a good paradox.
It's called
Yeah.
focusing too much on tools,
Okay.
not enough on problem solving.
That's interesting.
Right.
Because it seems like we're always hearing about the new tools,
Right.
the new frameworks.
It's easy to get caught up in that.
Right.
While tools can enhance our productivity,
Right.
they shouldn't become a crutch
Yeah.
that prevents us from developing
Right.
those core problem-solving skills.
It's like relying on a calculator
Exactly.
to do basic math
Yes.
instead of actually understanding.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hoy
Yeah.
and forget
Right.
that good coding
Yeah.
is all about problem solving.
So it's about the why, not just the how.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where this article offers an interesting suggestion.
Okay.
Try tackling coding challenges
Mm-hmm.
without relying on advanced IDEs
Oh, wow.
or libraries.
So like
yeah.
going back to basics.
Back to basics.
Just a text editor and your brain.
Exactly.
Okay.
This can strengthen your problem-solving muscles,
Yeah.
help you understand those core principles,
Mm-hmm.
and appreciate the elegance of simple code.
It's like a workout for your
It is.
coding skills.
It is.
It's like what we talked about earlier with the algorithms.
Exactly. Algorithms are all about
Right.
problem solving.
Right. Okay.
So yes, it's important to stay updated.
Yeah.
But don't let that
Yeah.
overshadow those core principles.
Right. Okay. So we've covered
We've covered a
a
lot.
lot of ground today,
Yeah.
from the fundamentals
Yeah.
to the over-engineering
Yeah.
to the soft skills.
Yeah.
What would you say are the
Yeah.
most important takeaways?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that, becoming a good developer is a journey.
Right.
It's not like you reach some endpoint.
Right.
You're always learning.
Right. It's constant learning and growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not about, checking off all the boxes.
Right.
It's about constantly trying to improve and expand what.
So what would you say, is the common thread
Mm.
between all these pitfalls we've talked about?
I would say it's balance.
Balance, okay?
Like, you got to balance the excitement of new technologies with, the solid foundation of those fundamental principles.
Right. Yeah.
Individual brilliance with collaboration,
Right.
efficiency with readability.
It's all about balance.
Yeah.
And it makes me think, all these pitfalls we've talked about,
Yeah,
they're really just learning opportunities.
absolutely.
Every mistake, every challenge, every moment of
Yeah,
frustration can teach us something.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Even the most experienced developers have faced all these
Right.
at some point.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
It's part of the process.
So what advice would you give to, developers just starting out?
Don't be afraid to experiment.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And ask for help.
Yeah.
Embrace those challenges.
Yeah.
Find those mentors and those communities.
Yeah, because you're not alone.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And never stop learning.
Right. It's all
It's
about
constantly evolving.
continuous learning,
You gotta keep up.
which is what we talked about.
Yeah.
Finding that community.
Community is huge.
Yeah, those people who are facing similar challenges.
Absolutely. Connecting with other developers
Yeah.
can be so beneficial.
Right. So we can all learn from each other.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
not just about your own mistakes.
Yeah.
It's about learning from everyone else's too.
Right. So we can all grow together.
Yes.
All right. Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive
Yes.
into these coding pitfalls.
Yeah.
And I think, the main thing I'm taking away is it's
Mm,
not just about technical skills.
it's more than that.
It's about that growth mindset,
Mm,
that collaboration, and just remembering, like, why we love to code.
absolutely. It's a journey
Yeah.
filled with challenges and rewards.
Yeah.
The more we learn from those mistakes and support each other,
Right.
it just becomes more fulfilling.
Right. And maybe by doing all this, we can actually
Yes.
build a better future one line of code at a time.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
So to everyone out there,
Yeah.
keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep building.
Awesome. And that wraps up our deep dive for today.
It does.
We hope you enjoyed it,
I hope so.
and we'll see you next time.
See you later.